What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video here at Paddle and Fin. And today I want to talk one of my favorite baits, crayfish. So there's many different brands, many different ways to fish them, many different styles. One of my favorites, just come out and say it, is Z-Man's. This here is a Z-Man craw. The reason why I like these is just the durability. The cool thing about Z-Man baits is that Elastec plastic. I mean, you can stretch these things, manipulate them. If you go back and watch the video of me fishing up in northern Wisconsin, I actually started out fishing up there with the Berkeley Chigger Craw, which I love this crayfish, and I'll give you a close-up of all these. But the downfall of this is this plastic. It's tough, but it's brittle. A lot of times what will happen is a fish will rip off this claw. Just the bait will get ripped up, because I usually fish these on an offset hook. So from that hook set and this getting twisted around on the shank of the hook, it breaks these down. Whereas with the Z-Mans, that doesn't necessarily happen. And I got a few different brands sitting on the bench here that I want to talk to you about. Durability wise, in that northern Wisconsin fishing video, I probably caught pretty close to 50 fish on one crayfish, and the thing was still usable. Actually, I think I still have it, to be exact. But that's the beauty of these Z-Mans is, you could catch numerous fish. However, sometimes, if you look at these claws, the ripple of this bigger claw on the Berkeley bait could be all the difference in the world. This Z-Man, the way this hook is, it gives a little bit different action in the water. I'm working on getting a fish tank so I could show you the action of these baits. I don't have it yet. I found one. I gotta go pick it up. So maybe what I'll do is do a part 2 to this video, following up, showing the different actions between these baits in that actual fish tank. Unfortunately, right now it's winter, so I can't go out to the lake and show you that way. But I think it'll be a cool run through on how I'm rigging up my different crayfish patterns, where I'm fishing them, how I'm fishing them, the different setups, the different brands I'm using, things like that. There's many other brands of crayfish out there that I don't have on the table. Right now I got 3, 4, 5, 6 brands. However, I got 4 different styles. I take that back. 5 different styles of a crayfish style pattern that Z-Man makes. I'm not trying to be brand savvy with this. However, if I can pay, I think these Berkeleys are roughly $4.50, $5 a package. And the Z-Mans are just about the same price, possibly $1 more. I know on Tackle Warehouse, I think these are like $4.75 a bag. You could have a bag last you all season. There is, I would say, probably 8 in a package. I could be wrong. But 8 times 50, that's quite a few fish. You're not definitely fishing this all the time. However, either of these and some of the other ones on the table make good trailers on the back of a chatterbait, things like that. I mean, for a good portion of 2018, I used this Chigger Craw on the back of a green pumpkin chatterbait and caught numerous bass and northern pike on it. Again, these big claws flapping in the water put a very unique action on it, and so do the Z-Mans. with that hook style claw. The way those flutter through the water is pretty unique. So different brands are going to do different actions, so to speak. But you know, this is my take on crayfish. Let's run through the different ones I have and the different rigs I have, and you know, kind of run you through that way. So we'll start with the TRDs. This is the new TRD craw. This is one of those finesse bullets I've been talking about on the podcast. What's unique about this, and I've only fished these once, but when this is in the water, that bait kind of sits propped up like that because of the way that this is weighted, right? It's kind of sitting here. You see the action of those claws? Those just kind of sit there and dangle in the water. Super fishy, gonna turn the fish on. The turbo craw, this is what I was talking about with the hook style. This, along with many other of these, I am going to use either a 2/0 or 3/0 offset Gamakatsu hook with a cone weight on the head, or in front of it on the line. I do use these, or I will use a screw in to keep it tight to that bait when I'm fishing it. Sometimes these sliding ones aren't a bad option. So what'll happen sometimes with the Z-Mans in particular, if your weight gets in front of it, these Z-Man plastics float. So this thing will be up here floating if they're string connected, right? And I got my offset hook. This is gonna float up here. And then when you go to jig it, this is gonna pull tight. It's gonna bounce off the ground, flip up, and then come back down and sit. So, whereas if you got it Ned locked, or I'm sorry, if you have it screw locked, you know, this bait is going to be bouncing just right on the bottom, going along. So that's my take on that. So it all depends. Like, you know, I'll switch back and forth between these. Sometimes this is a great option because, like I said, sometimes you get that slack line in there and this crayfish is just floating off the bottom, and those fish will just come swoop it up, take off, set the hook. This is a new one that I haven't even fished yet. I just got these, I don't know, a month or two ago from Tackle Warehouse, and these are called the Boar Hogs. I'm picturing this, you know, rigging it the same way as the Turbo Craw, but I've also seen guys put this on the good old Ned rig, you know, so this is sitting up, just, you know, you could see the motion in that, just dangling. I would like a little bit bigger hook. I also think you could use this for punching, you know, which brings me to the next Z-Man. And again, I haven't used this one yet. I just got these in that Tackle Warehouse order. But these are a punch craw. Put a skirt around them. You got, you know, the same thing with the TRD craws. These claws are super actiony. So punching that up, letting it drop down, you're getting a lot of flail out of those claws. Berkeley Chigger Craw. So this is that close-up look. Those are those claws I was talking about. Normally I rig this with a 2/0 offset, sometimes a 3/0 if they're missing that hook, and I'll use that bullet weight in front of it. A lot of times I'm not using the screw-in weight. I'm free floating that, because again, if this is floating up there, see how those claws are dangling? They're just floating in the water, getting a ton of action. Same thing goes with this Rage Craw. This is made by Strike King. Big beefy claws on it, super wide spread, flutter in the water. This is a good trailer bait. I've used this a lot for trailering. on chatterbaits and things like that, even jigs, just a regular football jig. So again, I like this widespread, big beefy claws on a football jig. You know, you're getting a lot of action out of those claws as you're bouncing it across the bottom. This is a package of baits I bought. I haven't fished these yet, but when I couldn't find the chigger craws is when I picked these up, and then I ended up finding the chigger craws. So they're very similar. They're made by Net Bait. Berkley chigger, the Net Bait. You can see those two are super similar. This doesn't have the legs. So again, football jig. This is a hollow bait as well. Hear that? Good trailer bait, football jig, something along those lines. Again, I haven't used these yet. It's a 3 3/4 inch craw. Gonna give them a shot this year. Next one, Doomsday Tackle. They call this their Doomsday Devastator. They call this an action trailer. So same thing. Good trailer bait. Throw these on the chatter as well. Football jig, something along those lines. They got a thinned out claw. What I do a lot of times is I trim this body down to right about there, so it's not as long and beefy. So that way, if the fish comes and grabs it, it's not just getting plastic and missing the hook. They're getting the whole bait. So that's the thing about these. I would trim them down unless you're using like that cone style weight and like a 4 or 5/0 offset hook. And then the Cabela's brand. So we'll put this next to the Berkley. So you get the Berkley Chigger Craw, and this is the Z-Man Turbo Craw. So you can see this is a little bit smaller, but it's still got the big beefy claws. So, if you got fish that are finicky, they're not really going after the bigger baits, I'll switch up to this. You're still getting the good action on the claws, but, if they don't have a big appetite, this is a good go-to just because it's slightly smaller, just like the TRD craw. So compared to the TRD, the TRD is slightly smaller, but both good options. So when I'm doing my offsets, just kind of show you guys this. I'm sure a lot of you guys know. For those that don't, this is for you. I'm going to run this in right to where the bend in the actual hook is. I'm going to pop that through, slide it up. So that offset is coming just out of the body. I'm going to bend this forward, pull it through. See that hook tip coming out of there? And then I'm just going to pinch the bait and poke it through so it's sticking in that plastic. So again, you got this thing. This is the Turbo Craw by Z-Man, but the Berkley Chigger Craws, the Rage Tails, all those baits, when I'm rigging it offset, I'm going to rig it with that weight. Something I haven't messed with before, and I'm not 100% sure about how buoyant those Berkley Chigger Craws are and some of these other ones, but I know, if you toss this Turbo Craw without a weight, it's just going to float on the surface. So, hence the weight. Heavier weight, the more this isn't, or the lighter the weight, I should say, the more action this is going to get. The more it's going to kind of flail through the water. Whereas if you have a heavier weight, it's just going to want to bump down real quick. Which would be good in like a rocky situation, right? If you're ticking those rocks, it sounds like that crayfish ticking across those rocks. It'll alert fish, things of that nature. Again, I'm no pro. I'm just talking from experience and you know, things I've done on the water that have worked for me. So this is the typical way I'll rig a crayfish with a weight, jigging it on a rod. The one bait I didn't show you is the Ned Rig TRD hogs. If you watch the Evergreen Lake video, that was from 2018. This little bait here saved my whole fishing trip. This is what I pretty much caught all my fish on. I think I got a couple on a spinner bait as well, white spinner bait. But this kind of looks like a crayfish, right? These would be the claws, you got the body with the legs. It's more of a creature bait, so to speak. But you'll throw this on a Ned Rig. So I'll kind of work this through. I like using the Ned locks. They seem to hold the baits on a little bit better than your just normal Ned Rig bait. I mean, I struggle to get this thing to cinch down. You almost got to like pry the whole body down, right? And then work it back up. So this bait in particular, you know, when it's sitting on the bottom, it's sitting like this. You see those back end, just a lot of action. It's almost like a drop shot. And I've seen guys drop shot crayfish. I haven't personally tried it, but it's something I may experiment with a little bit this year. I mean, let's face it, most of the time crayfish are on the bottom. They're not floating through the water column, you know, X amount of inches up off the bottom. But what I did with this down at Evergreen was I was taking it on the bottom and I was ripping it through some weeds, and then this, you know, like fishing a TRD, you get a slow fall. So when that slow fall's going, you see how these legs are just flipping around? You know, that's enticing a bite. So a lot of times this thing would come ripping through the weeds and then just slowly fall, and the fish would grab it before it even hit the bottom and take off. There were a few instances where I was fishing laydowns and I would tick this off the top of the log as it was dropping. Fish would come out from underneath a branch or something and grab it. So I love these TRD hogs. You know, my favorite color overall for any of these crayfish is usually green pumpkin. I'll start with that. However, I got many different colors in all these brands. You know, sometimes when you're pitching a football jig, you know, you're using black and blue. Maybe that's a hot color. You know, I got black and blue crayfish. I'll throw that on there. Again, you know, it's matching it up. Like I mentioned earlier, with the chatterbait, you know, I usually throw a green pumpkin chatterbait here on the home lake, so I'll match that up with a green pumpkin trailer. Sometimes it's nice to switch that up, like throw a black and blue with a white trailer. You know, I experiment a lot with colors just to see what works. Sometimes some of the things I try work, but sometimes they don't. So, you know, it's a lot of experimentation, but I would say my go-to colors all the time are green pumpkin or black blue, and then veer off of that. You know, like this turbo craw here, they call this the blue claw. It's kind of got like a grayish blue tinge bottom with that, you know, orange coppery upper half of the body. So it depends too what season the crayfish are in, right? A good thing to do, like if you're fishing rivers, find a couple rocks, flip them over, see if you find a crayfish. You know, pick that thing up, match it up to your bait. I've seen a lot of guys do that as well. I personally don't do that. I probably should try it a little bit more, but you know, like I said, my go-to green pumpkin usually gets it done. If not, I'll switch up to black and blue and then kind of variate it in between there. So if you were going to order some crayfish, I would order a bag of each of those. Try them. If you're going to fish a lot of different bodies of water in different parts of the country, you may want to change that up and get, you know, a couple other bags. You know, like I know down south there's the Bama craw, Carolina craw. I'm just looking at the wall here. I mean, there's a bunch of different styles, but my go-to has always been a green pumpkin or a black and blue. So there you go, guys. I hope this little video helped you out with the crayfish. It's something I love doing. And like I said, when I get that fish tank, what I'll do is I'll kind of rig these up and show you the different actions, show you what I'm talking about with that cone weight being, you know, ahead of the actual bait and how this thing just kind of floats up there. That the TRD finesse bullets, those are super impressive. Go check out, Mike McKinstry did a demo video on that in a fish tank, and he shows the action of those claws just sitting there flailing. Super cool. You know, and that's what I plan to do. That's what sparked the idea of that. But not only that, just rigging up some of the different rigs that I use, showing you guys how I use them. Hopefully it helps you out. Maybe you gained a slight tip or a point instead of like maybe you always use a screw lock weight, using that free floating weight for the instance of this just kind of, you know, floating up off the bottom a little bit, something along those lines. Or just trying out the Z-Mans in general. Like I said, best bang for the buck in my opinion, just because you get so much longevity out of them. You know, let's face it, fishing tackle's not cheap. It adds up. So if you can get multi-uses out of this compared to, you know, like the Berkeley chigger craws, you know, and I'm not trying to knock Berkeley at all, but you know, sometimes you need that different action on the claws. That can make all the difference in getting skunked or catching fish. I've had it happen to me personally where I've switched up and bam, all of a sudden I'm catching fish. So again, guys, hope this helped you out a little bit. Don't forget to follow the podcast, Paddle and Fin. You can find it at paddleandfin.com. That's paddle, the letter N, in fin.com. We're found on all podcast platforms. Check out the website. We're posting blogs, things like that. If you guys ever have a question, feel free to message me here. Message us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Hit us up on any of our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me personally at Slydog Fishing. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You know, feel free to message me if you got any questions. I always get back to everybody. I just like helping guys out, seeing them catch more fish, or if it's a kayak question, you know, again, we'll get back to you right away, man. We just like helping grow the community, grow the sport. Don't forget, give us a follow. We love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Tight lines and smooth paddling. Boom!